You know, when we think of leaders, we often tend to think of someone who is the smartest, the fastest, the most knowledgeable, and they're leading from the front with kind of this follow me spirit.
And if you think about a quarterback in football, they're not generally the biggest, fastest, strongest, or even the smartest person on the team. Now, somebody out there is going to say, wait a minute, the quarterback has the most plays, they're the most important, everything else. And if you've watched football, which, those arguing would have, you'll know that there's a lot of players out there who are Rhodes Scholars. They're getting or have their PhDs and their MDs. There's a lot of smart people out there, but their skills lie in another position. So the quarterback's kind of a leader, and as such, you'll rarely see them, though, running out in front of the team. And that kind of gets to a point of leading by example is important, but we shouldn't confuse that with leading from the front.
So when a quarterback leads from the front, it may be that they've spotted an opportunity that they have to go for right away. They've just seen the window and they're like looking around like, nope, it's got to be me, and they've got to go. But more often than not, when a quarterback ends up out front, it's because something has gone terribly wrong and they're scrambling to avoid getting sacked.
So a quarterback is a leader on the field of one of the key parts of the team. In a sense, they're a mid-level manager amongst a team of mid-level managers, say the head of the defense, the head of the special teams. Their job is to focus the offense on the end zone and move their team towards it by accomplishing a set of near-term goals intended to end in a score. They have the authority to call audibles in the moment, but they usually get their guidance, advice, direction. You can think of that as plays and things to look for from an offensive coordinator whose job it is to look up and out at what's going on everywhere. And even though a quarterback tells their team which plays to run, they almost always lead from a place not in the front where they can see the entire team.
So welcome to April, Christina, Lauren, and Sarah Becca. I am Cliff W. Gilmore. I'm here with BJ Fitzpatrick Jr., and we're here to help you lead from north of center. Here's how this session will go. BJ and I are going to load you up with info up front for about 15 minutes or so, and then we'll just open the floor to questions, and then we'll stick around as long as you'd like. Administratively, you'll find a question and answer button near the bottom center of your screen, so you can go ahead and click that up, open it. You can submit your questions at any time. It may be that we'll slip one of those answers in during the presentation, but odds are we'll keep track of those questions and we'll go ahead and field those at the end. So hit us with your questions as you think of them, and then we'll tackle them when we get to.
So our topic today is delegation. Whether you're a seasoned leader or new to a challenge, or especially if you've been promoted from within your peers, it can be a tough shift from being a hands-on doer to someone who sets goals and direction, then lets their people run.
Now, in a worst case scenario, being too hands-on leads to being a micromanager.
Yeah, well, I hate being micromanaged.
Yeah, well, hey, BJ, there's a hyphen in micromanagement.
Okay, well, you're the PhD. More often, though, being too hands-on prevents, also a hyphenated word, hands-on, prevents a leader from unleashing the full potential and creativity of their team members. Different people see things in a vastly different way and often have new ways of looking at a problem and therefore solving them. The hard part is watching them take the first step to solve the problem, especially when it's not the first step you'd take. Now, as a leader, if you know the only way to solve a problem, then tell your people how to do it. Otherwise, let them go.
Even so, leading from the rear can feel really strange, especially if you're one of those folks who's been hired from among your peers and you've just been moved up from the I'm a doer category to now I'm responsible for managing a whole bunch of other doers. If you're really good at the thing you do and that gets your boss's attention and gets you promoted, you're going to find yourself in a whole new place when you're having to look left, right, across the whole span of a team and try and manage those folks and keep them going forward. So today we're going to share a couple of ideas to help you get comfortable with the idea of leading from the rear. And we like to think of that as leading from Overwatch. Now, our purpose here at North of Center is rarely to give you answers and solutions, although our approach is very much more about giving you ways to think about the different challenges that leaders face, and so that you can improve your ability to with prioritization and decision making within the leadership framework. So in this case, we're going to be talking about delegating tasks to others. And we're going to do it not as a checklist and a you got to do's, but as a couple of different ways of thinking about it. So we're going to hit you with a couple of concepts. The first one is the idea of the tactical operational strategic hierarchy. And the second one is what we call GAD-O, which stands for Guide, Advise, Direct, and Overwatch.
So the first thing I'm going to do is talk about the strategic hierarchy. Now, you all are familiar with it. You've heard it. And actually, I think strategy is one of the most overused words out there. People use it to mean everything. It means my brain's engaged sometimes. And we're going to tell you that it's a little bit different than that. Now, the tactical, that's the down and in. That's the workers on the line. And that's where things, for lack of a better word or a different word, get done. That's where the doers are working. They're accomplishing tasks at the tactical level. Now, at the operational level, you're looking in and across mid-level leaders and mid-level managers, working on organizational goals, tying different parts of the organization together, and having different teams move forward as one. You could think of that quarterback and the head of the defense. You know, they've all got the same plan. If they work together, even though they're not on the field at the same time, they're pushing the team forward, and they're probably at the operational level. And strategic is up and out. That's where your senior and executive leaders and managers are. They talk about overarching goals, big direction like earnings targets, organizational growth, 5-year plans. That's what we're talking about, the strategic. Now, why does this matter? Well, because our capacity is limited, all of us. Some of us are less limited, and by that I mean not a personal thing, but more of an experience thing. Those senior leaders have a whole lot more experience, so their capacity might be a little bit more, just aimed in a little bit different direction. So if our capacity is limited, we have to allocate that capacity to the right tasks. For me, as a 30-year Marine, I started off as a platoon commander with 40 people in my platoon. And a little bit of delegation happened there, but I was at the very tactical level. 40 of us, I could do most of the tasks. We shared some of the tasks, but I was in all the business as a platoon commander. That's what you do. And when I left the Marine Corps, I was a chief of staff for an organization of almost 20,000 people. Now, at that 30-year mark, I could have probably been a pretty good platoon commander because of all the things I had learned and all the experience I had had. But in our organization, we had hundreds of platoons, and they did not need me to lead them. I had to lead from Overwatch. I was responsible to the executive who was the commanding general for all the things that happened. And we had people who could do all those things. I just had to make sure that they did happen. And I couldn't do them myself because we had so many things to accomplish. Now, if you're new to a leadership position or have been promoted from among your peers, from being a doer to being in charge of a bunch of doers, your span of responsibility is going to increase. And your comfort level probably is still going to reside in the accomplishment of tasks. Now, in my last series of jobs, in uniform and wearing a suit to work, a suit and a tie, you'll find that those things never exist purely by themselves on any given day, in any given job, over any given year. On any day, I had to look up and out strategically. Where was the Marine Corps going? What were we doing with this thing for the entire organization? Where were we going to be in 5 years? But I also had to look in and across, make sure our teams were headed the right direction. And even down and in to small things. Was somebody accomplishing a specific task? Was there something I actually had to do? And that's one thing you're going to find out. And as you move up, you're still going to have plenty of things you have to do personally, but you're going to need to delegate a lot of things so that you can get those accomplished and so that your team can move forward.
BJ, you're talking there, you mentioned the different sizes of organization and over your career where you moved from working at the tactical level with a relatively small organization, say 40 people, which from a lot of perspectives is still pretty big. But moving on up to an organization of 20,000 and you had that hierarchy. One of the things that comes to my mind there is when you're looking at that tactical, operational, and strategic structure, you're asking yourself, well, where am I working? What am I doing right now? Where do I fit within this? In your larger organizations, if you drew that out, it would probably be sort of an upside down or sort of a V, and you're going to be doing a little tactical stuff, a little bit of operational, keeping in charge, but you're going to be looking mainly up and out, and your capacity is going to be allocated at that strategic thought, that strategic movement. And those are the kinds of jobs where when you're leading a larger organization where you aren't necessarily going to have minute by minute, hour by hour, even sometimes weekly by weekly accomplishments that are done. People look at you, well, what do those leaders even do? What those leaders are doing is spending a whole lot of their time, their capacity, looking up and out, building long-term relationships, putting things in place over the long term and thinking ahead. Where many of our clients end up working with us, either as coaches one-on-one or when we're working with them in a consulting capacity to help them strengthen their teams and their public outreach. They're smaller organizations, and those leaders end up, their graph of tactical, operational, strategic looks a lot more like just a pipe, and maybe some different bands there. But you often have to cycle back and forth through all of those things, which gets us back to that need to delegate. Because frankly, moving back and forth, toggling between operational, tactical, strategic, and back and forth is a really hard thing to do. And I can see in BJ's face, he's like, get on to the next topic. We're almost out of time. Because
No.
we did promise you about a 15-minute fire hose feeding here. But this takes me then to this concept that we call GAD-O. Which is Guide, Advise, Direct, and Overwatch. Now, BJ set the stage for thinking in terms of leading from the rear, from putting yourself as a leader in a position of Overwatch where you can look up and out at what's coming down the road at the same time that you can look across and in at your team to make sure they're moving in the direction they need to be. But ideally in Overwatch, you're not bogged down too much in the tactical. You're not getting sucked down into the day-to-day. Because if that happens, you're going to lose sight of what needs to be happening at those upper levels. So that's where we get to GAD, of GAD-O, which, as I said, is Guide, Advise, and Direct. This is sort of a sliding scale. And as with so much of what we talk about at NOC, it's not a trap, it's a guide. It's a tool to help you think through your decision-making and prioritization. And it has to do with the ways you present information to your team members. So on the direct end of the scale, the D in GAD, that will tend to be, or in an ideal world, if you're delegating well, will tend to be a fairly concise, tight list of things. The direct things are the things that you're saying, we've got to do this by this time in this way, has to happen a certain way. What I'd encourage you to do, though, is shift yourself over into the A and the G side of this sliding scale. Because if, as a leader, you're spending all of your time directing, and the list of gotta-dos is just growing constantly, that's your micromanager going on right there. And that doesn't mean you're a bad person, bad leader. It may, in fact, just mean you're a new leader, new to the position, and you're just trying to get used to what it means to be looking out across the span of a team rather than focusing on your day-to-day tasks. But one of the hardest things to learn in that delegation process is just, hey, you have people with knowledge, experience, and resources working with you. And if you give them a little bit of direction, a good, clear, concise list of we got to do this, we can't do that, then you can move yourself into the other side of that spectrum. And as you're sliding sort of to the left on GAD from the directive over into advising, advising is sort of the equivalent of, you might want to do it this way. You're still giving your people the freedom to be creative, to come up with their own solutions, to do things their own way. The advice side of it as a leader, though, is, you may want to try it this way. You may want to do it this way. I've done it this way. We know it works. But hey, I've given you my direction. We know when we have to have it done and where it needs to be done. But maybe you have a better way. Maybe the way I did it isn't the best solution out there. So here's my advice. Take it or leave it. but no passive aggression in that, really just like, hey, here's how you might want to do it. And then you can shift yourself over into this GAD category, the guide category of GAD. That's where I try to exist as a leader. Frankly, I struggle with it. I use these tools to guide me as a leader. And in the guide side of things, what you're doing is saying, you know, you might want to try it this way, but go for it, run. And what you can do by using this GAD-O framework as a thought process, as a frame of reference, is you can stop yourself and ask, hey, wait a minute, do I need to be providing direction right here? Or can I free up my capacity by giving just a good, tight, concise set of direction, maybe a little bit of advice, a little bit of guidance, and then go back into Overwatch and let your team run? What you're doing from Overwatch is saying, hey, I can look up and out. I can keep my eye on my team. I can make sure they're working within the left, right, got to do, can't do limits that I've set for them. But also then you're just available. I may be stealing one of BJ's lines here. You're available then to your team. So if they look back over their shoulder, say, hey, you're there to give them help or permission. So what we've given you there is that in that GAD-O framework is a way to think about how you're providing your information to your team and how you're telling them to move so that you can then get out of the way and just let them run. So ideally, spend most of your time in the G side of GAD, very limited amount of time on the D and directive side of GAD. And if you have to go into directive mode, get there and then get out as quickly as you can, or you're going to get sucked down into the tactical.
Cliff, I think you took everything I was going to say, so now I don't have anything to talk about. I'm joking. Okay, so that takes us to Overwatch. Don't confuse Overwatch for over shoulder. If you back off and sit there and breathe on everyone's neck as you watch them work, you're probably micromanaging. You might not think so because, well, I didn't tell them to do anything. Yeah, but you're bothered. You got to let them go. And what I used to do, we had huge projects going on and projects I couldn't pay attention to every day, is I set opportunities for people to brief me on how it was going with a thought towards there's enough time if this is going way off the rails for us to save it before it's actually due. And maybe it didn't have to be completely finished, but I had to see where the direction was going. And that's kind of how I provided the Overwatch so that you could protect the organization, protect them. And one of the things you'll find with delegation and Overwatch, especially as you learn, something may go wrong. And what you do then determines what happens for you as a leader and to your team, to you as a leader. And I've been there before, and you just have to go to, Cliff talks about taking the credit and the caning. When you go, that is my fault. I apologize. We're going to go back. We're going to get this done real quick. I just didn't give them the right guidance. And it's something you're going to have to be ready to do as a leader. And that's the part that leads you sometimes to micromanage. So you want to be real careful of that. But Cliff talked to it about observing your team, being accessible, standing back, watching them work, being able to go to your meetings that you have to go to that would take you off the task, take you out of the doer role. But when you give your GAD, rarely is it going to be perfect. You're not going to foresee all the problems. So what you need to be, and I talked about that relationship just a second ago, you need to be available to answer questions when your team's having a tough time or your guidance didn't quite cover it, or use your position to knock down barriers that your team may have encountered. Because as a leader, sometimes that's what you have as that leader is you got a little bit of the power, you got a little bit of the influence to get those obstacles out of the way that's keeping your team from getting to success, and then say, okay, obstacles out of the way, you guys get right back to work, and you're right back in Overwatch again.
All right, so we're going to go ahead and do a quick wrap up. We've provided 2 frames of reference, 2 ways to look at leading your teams that can help you with delegation. The first one is looking at that hierarchy of tactical, operational, strategic, and just asking yourself, hey, what kind of task am I doing right now? What kind of task should I be doing right now? And then didn't say it explicitly, but you're asking yourself, well, which ones of those tasks can I farm out? Can I hand off to somebody else and then observe? If you're a mid-level or senior level leader, you're probably operating more at the operational and the strategic. You need to be looking up and across just a little bit in. and handing the tasks off so that you can watch the folks who are supposed to be doing the tactical level work. And the other framework we gave you was GAD-O. The O in there obviously is that Overwatch piece, which is, you know, that's ultimately where you want to be so you can delegate effectively, and so you can watch your team once you've delegated, and you can keep your eyes on them and help them and break down barriers or give them, you know, updated GAD when you need to do it. So what I'll offer there then is the closing on the GAD part. That's sort of a sliding scale, again, to help you as a leader stop and say, okay, what am I doing here? What's my purpose in communicating with these folks? I want to give them some guidance, keep it broad, a lot of room to run, give them a little advice, tighten it up a little bit. Maybe you should do it this way. And then sometimes you've got to go directive and say, hey, you know, we've got to do this by this time and we can't do this other thing. And you give that in. So we've given you those two frameworks. And on that note, then we came close to the mark in some worlds there. We hit 20 minutes, but that's closer to 15 than 30. We're going to go ahead and wrap up at this point.
Nice try.
Yeah, nice try. I'm like, well, look over here. But that's what we had for you today when it comes to delegation. Might not be what you were expecting if you were looking for, hey, give me a quick, you know, LinkedIn or Medium article on 5 things I should do as a, you know, to delegate effectively. What we were giving you is ways to think about the problem as a leader. So with that, we're going to pause. I always do this. I promise to take a breath and then I forget to do that. I'm going to take about 5 counts of breath. Now's the time. If you have some questions, please do drop them into the Q&A. We're done popping new information out to you at this point. So we'll let questions flow. I do see not a question, but a comment that this was valuable and helpful. Thank you. Thank you. That was useful feedback for us. We try to, in fact, one of the principles of communication-based leadership, which we definitely avoided mentioning during this presentation, is interaction. We're trying to get towards interaction within this particular medium. It's hard. It's a one-way feed unless we get those questions. And so we also then, it's a one-way feed if we don't get that feedback. Thank you for that, Sarah Becca, for handing that positive remark back for us. I really appreciate that. We'll keep watching. If questions hit, good to go. We'll take them. In fact, we have one case where we were done and closed and went, wait, question. We'll come back to it. But unless another question hits, we're going to go ahead and call it a wrap for today. We don't want to bog you down for an extended period of time. Give you a nice, compact bit of information to take away. As always, thank you so much for investing your time with us here at North of Center. If you enjoyed this, if you found it valuable, please keep tuning in. Please pass the word to other folks to come on out, join us for this 15-minute block on Wednesdays and Fridays at noon Pacific. And we'll keep going live at those times for the foreseeable future. We also record and capture. So these videos end up on our website. So you can go check them out after the fact, or you can, you know, say, oh, wait, what were they talking about again? You can go back and find us. Over to you, BJ.
As always, I invite you to come to our website at www.northofcenter.com. But today I want to bring your attention to our resources tab, because when you click webinars now, you're going to find a schedule of our Leading from North of Center events that you can use to sign up. We'll keep those updated a couple weeks in advance. We're not going to put 1,000 of them on there. We'll just put out maybe 4, 5, 6, and then just keep them going. So you can look out there and sign up. You can also reach us directly by email at reachnoc@northofcenter.com. That's reach, N-O-C, @northofcenter.com.
Our team of coaches and consultants here at North of Center draws on combined decades of shared experience advising leaders and leading teams to success in places ranging from battlefields to boardrooms. If we can be of any help to you in your effort to be the kind of leader you would want to follow, please don't hesitate to reach out to us directly. We provide this kind of guidance to folks who need it. Yep, we're a business. Ideally, we're looking for coaching clients and consulting clients to really help their businesses go and grow. But in the spirit of what we do and in the spirit of our approach to leadership, if you need some help, give us a call. We'll set up a time, give you 30 to 60 minutes of one-on-one to get a better understanding of what you're looking for and what your situation is. And quite frankly, if we can give you some tips and pointers and send you away with what you need in a free hour, we've accomplished our mission here at Northern Center. So from my team, our team, to yours, our family, to yours, thanks again for being here. Stay safe, stay healthy, stay connected, and go be the kind of leader you would want to follow. Thanks for your time today. Take care.
See you, everybody.